Welcome to Living With. Today I have the pleasure of talking to Margie Petco, who is a retired registered nurse, wife, mother, and grandmother. She's also been sleepy most of her life, and it wasn't until she was 72 that she finally had a diagnosis of idiopathic hypersomnia after 30 years of being misdiagnosed with severe major depression. Despite living a full life with work, friends, and family, Margie still felt that she was sleeping her life away, but now she's on a new journey figuring out the proper medication to manage her symptoms and discovering a life, feeling human and present in relationships again. So welcome, Margie. Margie, hi. Thank you for joining us on Living With. It's really nice to get this opportunity to have another chat with you. I know we've got to know each other a little bit, and I'm really excited for everyone to hear your story because it's an important one that people hear, and it's also quite a long journey. So do you mind just taking us right the way back, where you're from and how you started this journey with IH?
Okay, well, thank you for this opportunity. My name's Margie Petco, and I'm 72 years old, and I was just diagnosed with IH about 8 months ago, and it's been a long journey. I do believe that I've had IH since I was a teenager, just never diagnosed, and I've also experienced major depression for the last 30 years. So with the combination of major depression and not knowing that I had IH, I was always told that I was depressed all the time. Even if I didn't feel depressed, I was told, well, you would still have to be depressed because you sleep all the time. And I sleep all the time. I remember as a child that my friends would come over and ask me to go to the mall or go take a walk or go to my girlfriend's house, and I'd be laying on the couch and I just open one eye and say, nope, I'm not going. I just want to lay down and sleep. I could sleep 8-10 hours a night and then sleep another 4 hours during the day. I'm always tired. And this is my way of life. And I've just accepted it because I thought I was depressed. And I'm so glad that I have finally been diagnosed with IH, that it kind of explains everything that I've been experiencing for the last 72 years. But it also puts it in perspective, and I'm not upset thinking that I'm depressed when I'm not, and that I have IH, and when I get tired and sleepy, there's an excuse for it. It's not because I'm just tired or lazy or I don't want to do something. I have a disease process, and it's called IH.
Yeah, there's a reason for your sleepiness. So how much do you think being diagnosed with depression kind of steered your diagnosis with IH in completely the wrong direction?
Probably 80%. I'm not going to say I wasn't depressed. I had an acute depression episode in 1997. There were multiple reasons why I became depressed. And that's when I realized that I slept a lot. I was always tired. I was put on medication. The medication would help the depression, but when I would go back to the doctor, he'd say, how you feeling? And I'd say, I'm feeling pretty good. The depression isn't too bad, but I just keep sleeping. And I don't know why. And so the doctor would say, well, Marge, you're probably still depressed. So we'll either cut your medication or we're going to change your medication. I've probably been on every SSI there was or SRI that you can imagine. I've been put on multiple ones. I've been taken off of them, put them back on. No matter what I take, it might help the depression, but then I just get sleepy. And so when I go back,
Yeah, it's really difficult.
yeah,
Right. It's really difficult, that piece, isn't it? Because sleepiness is a symptom
right,
of depression, but it's what comes first and that relationship between the two. But it's also interesting because you've obviously had both,
right.
but unfortunately your doctor wasn't able to kind of really look at the sleepiness. Now, I know when we spoke before, and you were talking about how this impacted your childhood and your teenage years, but it seemed to me when I was thinking about it, you were still so quote unquote successful. But did you miss out, Margie, on
Oh,
things, would you say, as a teenager?
oh, everything. I never went to prom. I never went to school dances. I never did anything that most teenage kids back 70 years ago or 60 years ago would have enjoyed. I didn't go to football games. I was too busy sleeping. That was important. I came home from school on Friday night and would do my homework and then sleep. I remember my mom waking me up for dinner and saying, Marge, dinner's ready. And I'd say, I'll eat later and just continue sleeping. That's what I did. And it's really sad to think that I gave up so much in my teenage years. During my marriage, I've been married for 52 years. We went on vacations. Sometimes I ask my husband, he'll say, we went here or there. I'd say, really? Did we have a good time? Because I slept all the time. He'd want to go do things, and I'd say, okay, we'll go. But then I'd want to go back and take a nap, and he'd go out and take walks and see the sights and whatever. But I slept. When it hits me to sleep, it's sort of like I get this sensation right here, and it doesn't hurt. It's just like right here, I get a feeling, and my eyes get heavy, and I say to myself, okay, it's time to sleep. And that's what I do. I go lay down, I put my head on a pillow, and I fall asleep in less than 2 minutes. And I sleep anywhere from 3 to 4 hours, and I wake up and I'm still tired. I think I can't be tired.
How is that? I mean, that's a lot of sleep, isn't it? And again, quite typical for someone with IH. But how has that impacted your marriage? And congratulations being married so long. But there's a loss there, isn't
Yes.
there, of all the things that you can't remember?
Yes. It's been, we've had a good marriage. We really have. We enjoyed things. We did things together, but I always had that component to say, I need to go to sleep. And my husband just thought it was because I was depressed. So he was supportive and said, okay, honey, go take a nap. And I think it's really because he really thought I was depressed and that he was trying to understand what I was going through. And so he would just say, go take your nap. We'll eat dinner when you wake up. And that's it. My boys, I have two boys, and when I would come home from work, my oldest one would meet me at the door. And he would say, Mom, did you have a good day or a bad day? And I'd say, a bad day, because I was a manager. And he'd say to my youngest son, just let Mommy go and take a nap for an hour. She'll be better when she gets up. And they just knew that I needed to go take a nap or I was going to be grouchy for the next hour or two. So my kids realized it. They didn't know why. They just knew Mom was tired, and when she came home from work, she needed to take at least an hour nap or I was a bear.
Mhm. So I know you were a nurse for a while. How did having such extreme sleepiness impact your occupation?
Um, well, you have to remember, if I wasn't working, then I was sleeping. So some days I would sleep 15, 16 hours and then just go to work for 8 hours. And that's how I was able to function. Um, I actually worked night turn for quite a few years. And basically, I worked back then, you only worked 8 hours. Um, I would go to work at 11, so that meant I got up at 10, took a shower, ate something, went to work, and then got home at 8 o'clock and would go back to bed and slept until 10 or 11 or 10 o'clock the next night. Um, I only woke up to eat.
Did you ever feel,
Maybe
yeah,
sometimes my
did you,
husband would wake me up and he'd say, dinner's ready. And I'd say, I'll eat later. And I'd eat on the way to work, grabbing a sandwich or something, because I basically didn't eat anything all day. Uh, it was hard. It was just something that I enjoyed. Fortunately, I was a registered nurse for 42 years before I retired. Uh, I never ever
that's
felt
incredible.
that I hated work. I didn't want to go to work. I enjoyed working. So that was a positive. So I forced myself to go to work. Um, there were times that during my lunch break, I would go in the back room, close my eyes for the 20 minutes, and then come back out. That's the way I would function, not every night, but most nights. But I slept 15 hours during the day just to be able to work 8 hours.
Yeah. So that's all you did
Oh,
really
definitely,
then.
definitely.
That's the choice you
Yeah.
made. So, I mean, you've obviously lived with IH for a long time and without a diagnosis for a long time. What changed? How did you get a
Well,
diagnosis 8 months ago?
I live in Charleston, South Carolina, and I worked at MUSC, and I have always supported their research. So I looked up some research projects, and they were having a clinical trial for depression. And since I've been told that I have depression, I thought, well, I'll try this. So I went and I interviewed and I did a couple questionnaires, and I was told that I didn't meet the criteria for depression. But I did meet some criteria for a sleep study they had. So they said, would you like to try that one? So I said, sure. So I went back a couple weeks later and interviewed, and I had to do a 24-hour sleep study. And they said that I passed with flying colors of having IH. And so they enrolled me in the IH study. It was a 15-week study taking limericks, and it was
Was it
Lumerize, I'm
Lumerize?
sorry, Lumerize. And
That's
it was a godsend. That's all I could tell you. After about the second week, because they build up, they start at a very low dose and they increase it. And by the time the study was in the eighth or ninth week, I was on 7.5 grams, and it was wonderful. I had more energy than I've ever had in my life. I accomplished more things. I was up during the day, didn't have any desire to sleep. Even my husband said, why don't you sit down for a few minutes instead of, I clean like crazy now. And it was wonderful. And the 15 weeks ended. And unfortunately, that medication isn't approved for IH. That is what the trial's for. And so my insurance wouldn't approve it. And because I was never diagnosed before, I never tried anything else. And so my insurance company said that I had to be on other medication. And so they put me on Ritalin, and that really didn't work too well. I was still taking naps during the day, and probably not long naps, but probably 2 naps a day instead of just the one. I'd take an hour nap and then do some things, and then I'd take another hour. So after that, my doctor tried to get me on Xywave, and of course, that took a long time. It was a month between the time that I ended the trial and I was doing so well, and then when the Xywave was finally approved. So that's what I'm on now. And I started on a low dose. And last night I started on my 4 grams. And I'm not napping this last week, even on the 2 grams, but I felt tired. I did take a few, I shouldn't say I didn't nap, but I took a few naps and they weren't very long. And that was a plus. So I'm on 4 grams now.
So,
and hoping that this works, or if not, I'll go up a little bit more. And in fact, the Xywave is just getting delivered again today. And I think that's the FedEx guy at my door.
that's really great timing. So, yeah, in case people that are listening aren't quite clear about the differences, Lumryz is also known as the once-a-night oxybate medication. And Xywave, are you taking
No, I'm
it
just
twice?
taking it once. Yeah.
Just
and
one dose.
And my doctor talked to me about that if it doesn't last all day, that we could go to 2 times. But right now it's working. So we're going to try just the once.
That's wonderful. So it was a clinical trial that really diagnosed you, which is a huge reason sometimes to put ourselves in those positions of being in trials. But obviously your journey towards that diagnosis was really circuitous. So what's life like for you now, Margie? What are the differences?
I have more energy. I want to do things. I don't want to sleep all the time. I don't. I'm raising my 9-year-old granddaughter, and I'm able to give her a fun-filled, or I was able to give her a fun-filled summer because Grandma didn't have to take a nap all the time. And it's hard when you're raising a 9-year-old to always say, okay, we'll go do this, but Grandma's got to take a nap first. And she was very understanding, but it's hard. It really is hard. During the summer, because that's when I did the trial, June and July was wonderful. We went swimming every day. We went to the park every day. We were able to do activities where I would have never been able to do that and take her even just on little day trips. I drove up to the Carowinds, which is a 3.5-hour ride, which, with IH, it's really hard to drive any long distances. I never drove any long distances because I would fall asleep driving. So I was able to drive up there and back home in 2 days without any problem. So it was wonderful. It really was.
It's huge. You're on your way back to it by the sounds of it. So that's without any stimulants. So I remember before when we were talking, you did this contrast between like being treated and diagnosed versus being untreated and undiagnosed. You really talked a lot about the kind of loss and grief around those years. Could you say a bit more about that, Margie?
I had a very boring childhood. Didn't do anything that was fun. because I went to school and I came home and took naps, did my homework, and went to bed. I look back even now, and there's times that during prom season, I get tears in my eyes because I never went to prom. Never really dated in high school because I was too busy sleeping. I met my husband the night he got out of the Navy, and I was 18 years old, and we got married when I was 20. I was going to school at the time to become a nurse. Other than going to school and coming home and studying, and I took naps, believe me, a lot. I'd fall asleep while I was studying, sitting up in a chair. I didn't want to do anything else besides go to sleep. So it was tough. I give my husband a lot of credit for staying with me because we always just thought it was depression, and that's what I needed to do was go to sleep to be able to deal with my depression. But to find out that now that it wasn't depression, it was actually IH when I was younger, it's a big adjustment. It really is. It's a big adjustment for me to think that I didn't do things, I didn't go places, I didn't see things that were out there because I was tired. And when you get sleepy and tired and you're looking out the window, you don't see the sun. You don't see the brightness. You just see a dull world. And that's what my life was, just a dull world, because I didn't see what everybody else was enjoying, because all I wanted to do was sleep.
Yeah, it's a huge loss. It's I'm so glad you've got treatment and this new lease of life. I'm sure it's a huge adjustment for your whole family, to see you with more energy and able to do things. And it's also incredible to be raising your granddaughter as well. I'm just so delighted you're part of our community. Wanted to welcome you.
Thank you.
Because I think your story is, pretty dramatic. It's not unheard of. And I know that it was on your heart to reach out to people who may have had a very similar experience to you. So thank you
You're
for sharing
welcome.
that, Margie. And I look forward to keeping in touch and seeing you at conferences and doing all the things I know that you've got lined up.
Thank you. Just last weekend, I went to a reunion back in Ohio, and this one woman was telling me that her husband slept all the time, and she was so disgusted with him because all he wants to do is sleep. And I said, excuse me, but I've got to ask you, does he sleep during the day all the time, and does he sleep at night? And she says, yeah, he sleeps all night, but he just gets up and he's just tired, and then he sleeps during the day. And I'm so tired of this because we can't do anything. So I told her about IH, and I said, please look this up. I said, I've suffered with it for 72 years. I said, please, for his sake and yours. I said, look it up, get him tested, find out if he has it. I says, it could change your life and his.
Yeah. And that is so hard when the response of other people is, as you said, to be disgusted or, that sets up a lot of shame. And these are really difficult things to deal with on top of the struggle of sleepiness. So thank you for sharing that. You're already advocating for others. It's wonderful.
All right.
Margie. Thank you so
very much.